Monsieur Lamoureux.
Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the presentations that both of you have made. And there's a couple of things that come to my mind. First and foremost is that there is an ongoing need to look at ways in which we can improve our elections so that we have full participation. Last night in some of the presentations, they talked about the dignity of the vote. And I can catch a little bit of that, in particular, Ms. Bergeron, in your presentation, in terms of you want to be able to go and vote. You don't want to have to go and tell someone to place my X under this particular candidate or this particular party. And being able to mark your own ballot if you are visually impaired is something that is really important. In listening to the presentations, what came across my mind is that Section 18. It does put in serious limitations for Elections Canada. We had a motion that passed a number of years ago, which received all party support, in essence saying, mandating Elections Canada to reach out and participate in more youth activities, the production of materials and so forth. This is something that it will not have the ability to do if this legislation were to pass. Section 18 seems to be a problem area for a wide variety of reasons. My question to both of you is that if Section 18 is not amended, how would you both as heads of organizations feel about that? To what degree do you think Section 18 needs to be amended?
I think the amendments from the perspective of CNIB, the amendments that we would like to see specifically around strengthening and being more directive with the Chief Electoral Officer to do the testing and to create a more accessible voting process. That is our key issue that we would like to put forward. If that's not amended, we would then be reliant on the Chief Electoral Officer to decide that he wants to do that, or reliant on government to say you need to go do that and give them a pilot. If it's in the bill and in the legislation, they would be required to, and there would be more focus on it. What I can say is that in the last federal election, I went to the polling station by myself, but with my dog, as good as these dogs are, they don't read. So I went to the polling station, and they gave me someone that took me through the process, took me in the little cubicle, and I told them who to mark the ballot for. They marked it, and we left. And after I left, I wondered who I voted for, because that person I don't know from anybody. I don't know their name. I don't know who they are. All I know is that they promised somebody that they would mark it honestly and that they would keep my ballot secret. Yeah. But I don't know that person. I don't have any clue. I could have voted for somebody completely different, and I have no idea.
Yeah, so, Mrs. Bergeron, you gave an excellent presentation, and you made reference to that. You have a talking computer that assisted you in giving that presentation. Given technology that we have today, do you believe that you would be able to have that franchise to vote without the assistance of someone else?
I have voted completely independently and in secret in municipal elections.
Now, are you afforded the opportunity to meet with Elections Canada? CNIB is a recognized institution here in Canada. Surely to goodness, if as an organization you wanted to meet with Elections Canada, they're going to listen, are they not?
Yeah, we have opportunities to meet with Elections Canada. I also sit on the Elections Canada Advisory Committee, as does Kory. So we are in discussions with Elections Canada at this point, yeah.
So have you obviously you shared this concern with Elections Canada. Have they taken any action whatsoever in terms of being able to deal with it?
I personally have only started with the process of the advisory committee. We've only had one meeting last month. So that process has just started. So But in the past, CNIB has been in contact with Elections Canada. I wasn't a part of those processes.
So now
I
you
can't
realize
say.
that if this bill was to pass with unamended, in particular with that Section 18, even if Elections Canada wanted to do a study, a further study, and wanted to come up with promotional materials, that it would be hampered because of this legislation. Are you aware of that?
I think the process that is in place becomes more onerous for getting permission to do that. If the legislation, if it was amended to make it more directive, the process, that the Chief Electoral Officer would have to go through that process. If the amendments aren't made and it stays more permissive, then I don't believe that it would encourage Elections Canada to go through a more onerous process than they already are, given that there hasn't been a whole lot done to date.
Yeah, and I guess, Earl, I'll go to you just to reinforce that aspect. There's many things that I believe, like this legislation is terrible from my personal perspective, the whole process and the whole 9 yards. I just want to focus in terms of how we try to meet the future needs of the electorate by franchising more to participate in elections. It would seem that there's a lot of validity to to a lot of the things that we're hearing here this morning. What are your thoughts in regards to tying the hands of Elections Canada, if in fact we do not amend it, in terms of being able to do future studies with the idea of taking action on this issue? Do you have some thoughts on that you'd like to share?
I don't necessarily think that this bill would tie their hands. It's not my viewpoint that it would tie them and hamper them from doing it, but I think it would make that process more onerous, which means it would be less likely that Elections Canada would want to go through a more onerous process in order to do something. But this act does give them permission, but we had that already. So I'm not sure that at this point, I think that the wording needs to be changed into making it more directive, and that would really push this forward, and I think that would be a great deal of benefit to people with vision loss.
Maybe just change witnesses. Mr. Earle, if you could provide comment.
Absolutely. Let's make very clear that a lot of this material that's established is not clear language to people with disabilities. So when we talk about campaigns, whether it be Section 18 that's new, people need someone who, we talk about democracy in Canada, but yet we talk about Belgium, we talk about all kinds of things. That's no question from our membership. That's a huge concern in terms of Belgium, because people used to be able to go to polling stations. Not everybody has an ID in Canada. And when you talk about ID, let's be very clear on what kind of ID that's being asked for. So the perspective that we're saying is that have an open-minded, and Elections Canada should, I attended a new committee. I don't hear a whole lot of campaigns that go on that involve people with disabilities. The only time I hear about is sometimes on the news per se, but I actually don't hear a whole lot of initiatives taking place. And I think that's a huge concern, is we want to involve all kinds of disabilities, but yet you don't hear about these campaigns, and you don't hear about how people with disabilities can get involved. If they can get involved, it's not plain language. It's not material that people can turn. I mean, you turn around and you give someone this, and they look at that and they throw it away because they don't know. They don't. There's not a clear understanding of what that is and what the definitions of that is, and that's where you're going to run into problems. And that's why we're saying, even on the election day on advance poll, people talk. There's all kinds of people running, but yet they don't know who they are, because there's no picture at the voting station or advance poll. There's no logo. There's no party. That will have an impact on Canadians with disabilities from coast to coast, and it will give them hope that this government, that all parties support their initiative.
Mr. Lamoureux? Thank you. Way over.